So I've been trying to play a Reave character for quite a bit of a while now. I don't know if you guys have noticed, Reave actually has one of the best MTX that I've bought it for quite a few years ago, and I wanted to use it in some build. But due to Reave being one of the low performing, I would say, in terms of single target, mostly good for clear build, I didn't actually start playing this build because I wanted to feel good with a skill without spending a crap ton on it, right? So I didn't actually play Reave before, but this league Reave actually got a pretty significant buff, which actually made me want to play Reave again. So this is the character, Reave, level 95 Gladiator, that I've created in League Start of 3.25, and boy, this build was good. It has served me very well. I have completed pretty much the entire game. First up, the Reave buff is very noticeable. I was using Reave from pretty much level 12 when you get it, and it felt good from then. One more thing that I was doing, and one of the reasons for me trying out Gladiator, was to use retaliation skills. So I used Crushing Fist and Sword Storm with expert retaliation support on a 3-link, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, it really felt good while I was leveling, but later on, especially when I reached like red maps, retaliation on just 3-link, it just never felt that good, you know. And just these 3 links and not enough from red maps to actually feel noticeable. I did not notice it that much at all. So if you look at my ascendancy, you're gonna see that it does not have the measured retaliation allocated anymore, but this actually was my second ascendancy. So I started off with Determined Survivor, and the next in Cruel Lab I actually took Measured Retaliation, which I swapped to Weapon Master just for the accuracy later on, because in red maps I started to feel that retaliation does not actually give me much value anymore. The third one, ascendancy point, I took More Than Skill, which basically makes me a lucky block. And along with this versatile combatant, right now I have 68 chance to block attack damage and 65 chance to block spell damage. When I take this node and my block attack or spell damage becomes lucky, I pretty much never ever get hit. It was, if you take a look at my build, you can see that I am wearing abysses, right? It never felt like I'm wearing abysses. This is one of the most viable abysses build, if you ask me, because of how amazing block is. And the last 2 nodes was Gratuitous Balance, just to get the bleed. Now there's a reason that I took bleed. Bleed has some amazing clusters meaning nodes, not the cluster jewel ones. If you take a look at these 4 points, and let's see what it actually gives me. If the enemy is bleeding, that is. So here 15% critical strike chance, another 15%, so 30%, 80% critical strike chance, so 80 and 30, 110, then another 80% increased critical strike against bleeding enemies. So basically 110 and 80, 190% just for these 4 nodes you get against bleeding enemy critical strike chance. It's insane. It's really insane. If you take a bit of a look in here, we are actually taking 15% and another 15%, which makes it so 30% here and here. 30, 40, 50%, and here 65%, 15%, 65%, right? 65% chance to bleed. You're pretty much gonna bleed most of the packs with 65% chance to bleed. Obviously 100% is good, but if you take a look at our foil on the main hand, you can see that it also has 21% chance to cause bleeding on hit. Just works off the main hand though, but it smoothens out the bleeding chance. On top of the good nodes of bleeding, you get excellent bleeding pops, which is actually buffed. It has went from 10% to 20% now, and it really feels good. Especially it's a physical damage pop, right? You scale bunch of physical damage here, as you can see, increase physical damage. In some other bunch of places you got increased physical damage, which scales that bleed pops, and whenever you see those pops, it's like evisceration in the screen, right? So that's pretty good. One thing I would like to say, that because of all the nodes that we take in this area, using a lethal pride jewel is very good. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, my damage currently is like 8 million. If I just remove this jewel, it drops down to around 6 million. That's how much important this jewel is. This jewel gives us 20% melee damage, 5% double damage, physical damage, and bunch of small nodes giving us like this one gives 4% maximum life. A bunch of small nodes gives us 4 strength, which also helps in a small margin, right? It's a pretty good location. There's a bunch of nodes that are allocated, which makes it pretty nice to have a lethal pride jewel here. Now we are also using cluster jewel, which is completely unnecessary. This is a later edition. I just wanted to see how this build feels with cluster jewels. You never need to use it. In fact, I'm gonna ask you guys to forget these cluster jewel actually exist, and I'm gonna provide you guys with the tree that I was using before this cluster. So my level is 95. I've been using this cluster for one level. Up until level 94, I was using the path of building that you can find in the description. That was what I was using. It gives us bunch of good stuff like crit multi, area damage, some ignore, physical damage reduction and stuff, but pretty much all of these things can be found in the tree. You're simply just ignoring free stuff that you can get from the tree. Buy some cluster jewels in the hopes of getting a teeny tiny bit more efficiency out of it. But the truth is, there are so many good nodes just in the tree that I could not pick because of this cluster jewel spending. I think I just wasted my money in here. I don't want you guys to waste your money. I would like you guys to follow the tree that I'm gonna give you in the path of building. Alright? Next up, let's talk about my gear. So obviously, as you can tell, I'm using a foil with focus on critical strike chance, attack speed, and physical damage. The fire damage, as you can see, does fucking nothing. Don't even look at it. It's useless. The 5% chance to deal double damage, cherry on the top, barely makes any difference. Don't worry about it. You need to get foil, which is 450 plus PDPS. Now, if you take a look at the other hand, you can see Savior. I like Savior. Using Savior just gives me some sort of joy. That is why I'm trying to use Savior whenever I get the money. And this league I farmed quite a bit of money, so it wasn't much of an issue. But early on I was using this one. This one was also pretty good. Obviously this is a bit less damage than Savior, because Savior in terms of physical damage is pretty good sword. It's really hard to beat in terms of raw physical damage, but it has slow attack speed and less critical strike chance. If you look at that, you have 7.48 crit chance and 1.92 attack speed. You look at here, you see 5.45 and 1.35, but it has more raw physical damage, and it has the reflections, 2 reflections that do extra damage, which is also good. But getting one of these sword is going to work just fine for you. Abysses, because this build is insanely tanky due to speccing into block and having a lucky block. You barely ever get hit, both by spells and attacks. The only downside of this build is some degen, which can be mitigated with chaos resistance, elemental resistances, and if you are still having issue, Soul of Arakali, which basically gives you 10% reduced damage taken from damage over time. So rings and other stuffs, mostly you're going to be looking for physical damage, accuracy, life, resistances, some other stats like intelligence and stuff. You know the deal, right? One thing I would like to note, this chest piece I have actually dropped, and I couldn't believe my eye. This is a very good chest piece in terms of being dropped on the floor. When I dropped it, I was so happy, and I immediately went for 6 linking it, and this has been easing my critical strike chance requirement with the flat plus 1.11% critical strike chance to attacks, right? If I did not have this chest, I would not be using Savior, because otherwise my crit rate would be falling pretty low. Especially, as you can see, I'm not even using Diamond Flask here. I'm using a Silver Flask instead. So, yeah, that is... Right now we have like 57% or something, but as I said, 45 on Savior, 57 on this sword. As I said, if I did not have that 1.1%, I would be using the other sword here, and will be using Diamond Flask in Silver Flask's place. But if you do not have this chest, no worries. Actually, I was using Belly of the Beast until I had this chest, and it gives you even more life. This is a good chest piece for damage, but not in terms of life. Yeah, it has 138 life, but 40% maximum life is much higher. For a time being, I was also using another 6th link before I got Belly of the Beast. I don't think I have it anymore, so I don't really see any point of using it. Also, Abysses is something that I also only used after I got my block chance cap, because if you do not have enough block chance or spell block chance, Abysses will just make it so that you're gonna die in map every few now and then. I was using Devotees until then. When I picked this node in the tree that gives us lucky block chance for both attack and spells, and I had kept my block chance. By the way, you need to in addition to the tree, you need 1 jewel to have +3 chance to block, and you also need to pick Versatile Combatant to get both 68 attack damage, block chance, and 65 spell block chance. But if you reach that, then Abysses becomes extremely powerful. It is a very good helmet for this build. It gives insane amount of critical strike multiplier. It gives tons of physical damage. It has some attributes that helps you with other gear. It has that increased physical damage taken, which if you have actually capped your block chances, barely even matters. You get hit every 1 in a millennia. Alright? Yeah, maybe sometime you die, but you get hit once in a millennia. I've been doing bunch of bunch of hard content, and I never felt that this character is squishy or getting fucked here and there with just 4.7k HP. Alright, so block is that good nowadays. Apart from all these, I'm using Kalgur's Root, and Kalgur's Root is an amazing boot for this build, because you mostly rely on leap slamming, so movement speed is not that much of a higher priority. It's good if you have it, but this boot, just because it does not have the movement speed, this boot has 195 maximum life. It can go up to 200. It gives you action speed cannot be modified below base value, which basically means that you are immune to chill, you are immune to temporal chain, you are immune to freeze, you are immune to bunch of other movement speed reducing effects such as maim and some other stuff. Grasping Vein is not ignorable with this mod, and the tar that you see in Labyrinth is also not it also does not work with this. Action speed cannot be modified below base value, but most other ones work with it, so it's a great value boot for that matter. And on top of that, you have Unwavering Stance. If you do not use this boot, you will certainly have to spec into this node or figure out some other way to get stun immunity. Getting Brine King can be a good thing, but I think that there are some other good ones, especially Soul of Solaris and Soul of Arakali, which is very good to actually skip for Brine King, so I would not advise it. Just use Kalgur's Root. Most of the time it's sold for 1 chaos for even very high roll. My ones cost me I think around 25 chaos because it has an implicit 5% chance increased maximum life. It's nothing. You just strip that implicit away, it's a 1 chaos boot. It's gonna serve you very well. Just use it. In terms of flask, you can see most of them. The only thing I'm gonna say that if you are not using Bottled Faith, you just use a diamond flask. The only reason I am using Bottled Faith is because I have the currency laying around, and it certainly helps. It's better than diamond flask, but not to that degree that you go out of your way to get it. Now this is the tree and my gear. What leak mechanics did I try with this build? So early on, when I started this leak, I spec'd into Blight, Beyond, and Alva. Alva is not very rewarding in early few days, but there's a reason that I chose to do Alva. In day 1, the thing about Alva is only 2 things are sold if you are doing Alpha: Locus of Corruption and Doriani's Catalyst, or Doriani's Institution, maybe the room's name, I forgot, but the Doriani room and the Locus of Corruption room, right? In day 1, Locus of Corruptions are sold for 50 chaos, Doriani rooms are sold for around 20 to 30 chaos. Seems very low, right? You have around 70% chance to get either one of those or both of these rooms every 4 maps, and if you make it, you get as I said, if you get the Dorian 130 chaos, if you get the Locus of Corruption 150 chaos, but these are not that high figures. Why would I go for them? Well, you see, I've been saving them. I did not sell them because soon, maybe after a couple weeks, maybe after a week and a half, these things go in price really high. At a point, I've sold the Locus of Corruption ones for 1.5 divs, and I had a bunch of them laying around. I don't know, 20-25 of them laying around, that in an instant. 30-35 divine I just got from selling the Alva Locus of Corruption rooms. The Doriani ones sells for slightly cheap. I think the last ones I sold was for 90 chaos at the peak. I also sold some of them for 72 chaos, 80 chaos. The prices change, but they are much more valuable after a couple weeks and onward. Now, Blight. Blight is something that gives you tons of bubblegum currency and stacked decks. If you look at that, I got like what, 485 stacked decks. All of them are from the Blight maps that I've been doing. I don't think it's the best, but it is very consistent. The amount of bubblegum currency that you get, the essences, the chaos, the regret orbs, the all other types of bubblegum currencies you get from Blight is very consistent. There is no way in hell that I would believe that you have lost money doing Blight, but I'm not gonna also believe that you'll become super rich by doing Blight. Blight is an in-between it's a decent league mechanic. Why I do it is because I like doing Blight. There is something about this tower defense game that I really enjoy, which just makes me want to play Blight. But aside from that, it is not an unprofitable thing. You are going to make profit. It may not be the best of the best, like some people doing Sanctum or like Deliriums and stuff, but it's profitable. Last but not least, I was doing Beyond, right? Beyond is pretty much a XP powerhouse. Yes, once in a while you're gonna get fusing orbs, the tainted fusing orbs, tainted chromatic orbs. If you're very lucky, like I am, I got once a tainted divine tear drop, which basically sold for around 2 divines and maybe a bit more than 2 divines, but it's very rare. Most of the time your income source would be chromatic orbs and fusing orbs. Early in the league I sold like fusings for 40 to 45 chaos, and chromatics, every chromatic was like 7 chaos a pop or something. You get a bunch of them. But my reason for using Beyond was never to make currency, it was just to get the extra XP so that I level up faster. And you might be wondering, how could I get all 3 of these league mechanics with the restriction amount of points? By the time I filled all these 3, I was pretty much done with the Atlas. I have like 110 maps completed, and I was also using Unwavering Vision, which basically gives you 20 Atlas passive skill points. Early on, I did not value the scarabs that much because there wasn't too many scarabs in the market, and I personally just wanted to skip it for later. That's why I didn't go for that. I just took the 20 points, and for early league, it's pretty decent choice to go for. So after I farmed Blight, Alpha and Beyond, I switched to strong boxes. It's pretty common and pretty popular strategy, so I'm not gonna explain it to details to you. It is basically you get some scarabs, you get bunch of strong boxes in your maps, and you just do them and get some double divine orbs, double Valdos once in a while, right? They're profitable, but again, I think it's done mostly because it is a good and fast mechanic to complete with, and it's good for gold generation because this is King's March League, right? Lastly, what I'm doing right now is I'm farming bestiary and essences. Essences has always been pretty decent income source, but bestiary this league is very good because of the inclusion of Black Morgan. Black Morgans are sold for 1.3 to 1.2 divines, and with some scarab investment you get Black Morgans in every 20 maps, and every time you get 1 Black Morgan there's a scarab that gives you duplicate beast, right? So every single time you get Black Morrigan, you actually get 2. So every 20 maps, you get like 3 divines, and in between you get bunch of other beasts. They go for different prices, like 50 chaos, 20 chaos, 60, 70 chaos. Let's talk about King's March now. King's March is really fun. I enjoyed it. At this point, I think most of you already understand how you can be efficient with King's March. What I was doing was I focused on maxing my King's March as fast as possible. Then I made 2 mapping team consisting of 9 level 9 or tier 9 and 10, 9 to 10 mappers, and I then consistently ran 2 map devices. I unlocked 3 of them, but I only ran 2. I did not have that much map to sustain, so that I could just throw away 12 maps every now and then. 24 maps if you consider 2 of the map devices for the Atlas mappers. So I just stick with the 2 map devices. I didn't want to go with 36 map. 24 map was much more comfortable for me. And the only reason for that was to just complete the year grinding goals, which says that you need to do 200 red tier 14 plus maps with your mappers. After I was done with that, I really didn't want to bother with that anymore. I think mapping is a bit of a high tier thing for me. I don't want to, because it's really hard for me to keep up. Every now and then you see that your mapper die. Even level 9 and 10 level mappers die, and they're pretty expensive, and they're not like super easy to get. You need to reroll quite a bit to get good mappers, like high tier mappers. I don't want to deal with it, so I just wanted to get away from it after I'm done with the achievement. But I liked the shipment ones, and shipment one is something that I still do continuously. I've tried different strategies, mostly following different Reddit and YouTube guides, mostly by ZiggyD guides, and the last one that I'm currently following is just that 700,000 all crop rule, right? It seems pretty easy and it nets pretty decent income. That's what I'm doing right now. In terms of disenchantment, I've been hearing that many people are having many issues to sustain gears to put in disenchantment. I really don't understand. Well, my damn numpad was always filled with rings, amulets, and belts. Mostly rare, some uniques maybe. So what I used to do is I liked looking at item. I liked looking at the rows of an item. For me, not picking up anything from the ground is really discomforting. I know you can say all you want about efficiency and how inefficient you are if you pick up rare items at all, but my way of thinking is I think none of the items that are sold for under a divine are crafted. Every item that are under a divine are basically dropped item. So the rings, the amulets, the bells, the helmet, I don't know what else, that is actually dropped in the ground has a chance to have a price tag from 1 or maybe 0 to 100 chaos. Why would I not give a shit about it? And it's not like you never get the good ones. I've sold multiple rings, amulets that sold for 80 plus, 80, 90 chaos. That was dropped item. I did nothing to that item. Not even crafted anything. It did not have a... I could have crafted a good prefix, maybe life. No, it sold for 80 chaos. It had +1 lightning, all skill gem, and bunch of other like resistances and all that. Did not have life, had empty prefix. It's a dropped item. It's a dropped, not just one. I've sold multiple, at least 7 or 8 of them. 80, 70 chaos. I've sold bunch others for like 20, 30 chaos. 20, 30 is pretty common. You get bunch of items that you can sell for 20 to 30 range. I seriously don't see the point of how much efficient you are being by not picking up loots and missing out on these currencies. But it's different people's opinion. You're good to skip all the rare items if you want to, but I really enjoy picking them up, identifying them, looking at them. It's fun, and I've been making money doing it, so who cares, right? So because I was picking up a bunch of rings and amulets, what I used to do is that ones that are good, I put them up for trade, and the ones that were bad, I was disenchanting them. And because I was continuously doing mapping, my dump tabs were always filled up, so I never had a moment when I did not have any items to disenchant. And more importantly, because rings and amulets takes only one slot, you can, if you fill the entire disenchantment board, it takes around, like for me it takes around like 6 to 7 hours for it to finish. So it's not even like every now and then I just go there and disenchant stuff. I put them up all there. It takes 6 or 7 hours. Mostly I don't disenchant more than twice a day. Alright, and it served me well. I pretty much always have bunch of the dust that he gives, so that's been serving me quite well actually. Now the bosses of King's March I really enjoyed, especially the Black Knight. it's like somewhat of a knockoff version of old, but I really like that boss fight actually. The only thing that I would change if I had the chance is the shipment boss. I would give him 6 portals. I just don't see the point of it ever having just one portal. The entire game is revolved around 6 portal. Why just make, for this instance, make it that you only have one portal? I mean, I guess labyrinths are also one portal, but yeah, it's something I would make a change. But other than that, the bosses felt good. They had very decent reward. You never felt like you are wasting your time when doing a boss. In fact, you were more interested to do the boss fight whenever you found one. So that is a good thing. I think they did pretty well with the bosses this league. And yeah, so this build, I've been having quite a bit of a fun with this. If I had to give it an overall ranking, let's go with different categories, right? In terms of tanky, I would give this guy a 9. It's a really tanky character. In terms of single target damage, I would give this guy a 7. It has decent enough single target damage, but not to a point that you are going to be one-shotting bosses. It has very good clear. Reave has very good clear. I can't tell you enough. Reave has very good coverage. It has a very good skill. It was always a good skill for clear. The only thing it lacked was single target or damage, which after the buff has been pretty much got annihilated. I never feel like Reave is doing less damage. Maybe it's a standard many people have on different level. Maybe to some people it's not enough, but to me I feel like the buff of Reave has made this build, made this skill one of the best skills right now. In terms of which content this build is good, I would say tier 16. Pick your Atlas strategy, any Atlas strategy. If you are, this build has good enough clear speed to even do legions. This build has good enough single targets to even do essences. In fact, I am doing essences and bestiarity. Both of them are relied on single target damage. So this build is good for clear and single target, so you can pick pretty much any Atlas strategy, and this build is a jack of all trade for that strategy. The only things I would not take this character is probably the Uber bosses and the bad modifier tier 17 maps. I've done a bunch of tier 17 maps. If the mods are not horrendous, it can do it pretty fine. But talking about tier 17 and its mods, it's completely RNG, and if you're doing a bad map, you're gonna die. It's just plain and simple. In terms of mods to avoid in maps, you cannot do reflect, physical reflect map. You cannot do reduced block chance map. If you remove block chance, your character is nothing. It's a paper, to a degree, toilet paper, like wet paper, right? Don't ever do map that has reduced block chance. And somewhat doable, but still I would avoid, are the reduced recovery maps. Oh, one more thing. No leech map you cannot do. Your survivability relies on leech. You can never do no leech maps. Even if you can sustain your life, you are never gonna sustain your mana. Don't even try doing that. Alright? So that's it, I guess. It's a fun build. I would like you guys to try it out. I'll share the path of building link in the description. You can take a look and let me know how you liked it. Bye bye.